cut the dental. Axe the pharmacare. They're going to break the health system, and they're going to destroy childcare. And the nonsense he throws around, the vacuous garbage that's best left for Nabisco.
A lot is happening here in Canada. Welcome back to Moose on Loose. My name's David, and today's top stories. First, we've got an update from CTV. They ran that slimy story trying to put words in Pierre Poilievre's mouth. They got caught. They have apologized for that. We've got some multiple different clips on that, including Pierre Poilievre calling them out. Pierre Poilievre also destroys Mark Holland and Jagmeet in the House of Commons. We've also got Guilbeault. I'm going to fact check him on something here he said in the House of Commons. We've got more temporary residents trying to protest for citizenship. We've got a whole bunch of stuff, so let's jump into this. This retraction, we've got CTV. They actually went on air and corrected or, pointed out what they did.
Last night, in a report on this broadcast, we presented a comment by the official opposition leader, Pierre Poilievre, that was taken out of context. It left viewers with the impression the Conservative non-confidence motion was to defeat the Liberals' dental care program. In fact, the Conservatives have made it clear the motion is based on a long list of issues with the Liberal government, including the carbon tax. A misunderstanding during the editing process resulted in this misrepresentation. We unreservedly apologize to Mr. Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada. We regret this report went to air in the manner it did.
That was intentional. You guys did it on purpose. Why don't you bring up whoever's in the back who told someone in the editing room to make those changes? It was done intentionally. Don't try to hide it. That was taken out of context. CTV cut, splice, paste together words to artificially construct a statement Poilievre never uttered. That has zero to do with context and everything to do with fraud. Exactly. Pierre Poilievre himself called this out in the House of Commons.
This will be a carbon tax referendum, a carbon tax election. And I know that the media has worked hard to try and avoid me saying the words carbon tax, as we saw in the extremely dishonest and fraudulent report from Bell Media-controlled CTV, who's a company that is whose bonds have been downgraded to near junk status as its overpaid CEO empties the books to pay his wealthy friends an unacceptably and unrealistically high dividend. But the reason why he and his other cronies of that company are going after me is because he knows that I'm standing up for the people against the crony capitalists and insiders like him.
Get him, Pierre, get him. This isn't the first time they've done something like this. Whoever said this was okay needs to be fired. Now, they brought this up on CBC, of all places. Spoiler, David Cochrane is in defense of CTV.
They've admitted the mistake. It was they said basically human error and incompetence, or that happens in this business, right? I'm not saying CTV is incompetent, but we all make mistakes in this business and we apologize for it. And they published it, and their chief anchor said,
we all make mistakes. We just happen to just take some words from this sentence and that one and put it together into a Franken sentence to make a guy say something that he didn't say. On
the show, but to demand that they apologize for the malicious nature of the editing, to admit to a malicious intent here, that's a demand that's difficult for a news agency to accept.
I'm not sure that we should wave it away as just a mistake, because this is not a misattribution. It's not even taking part of the same sentence and applying it in a different context. Yep. This is taking a full paragraph, a variety of sentences that Pierre Poilievre said, taking bits and pieces from each sentence to craft a new sentence. Yeah. That is journalistic malpractice.
Okay, so just, and I'm not defending this, I'm explaining this. The sentence that Pierre Poilievre said is, that's why it's time to put forward a motion for a carbon tax election. For whatever reason, they spliced together different things he said in that scrum to create the sentence, that's why we need to put forward a motion.
It's not for whatever reason. They chose to do this because they want to smear him. They need him saying that specific thing to do it. So they lied. They're a bunch of frauds.
Now, it's not like it was changed to him saying something outrageous. It's not a sentence he uttered. It does not say it's about a carbon tax election. And in the way it was presented in the story, it makes it sound like he wants an election to stop dental care.
Correct.
So I get why they feel they were taken out of context, and CTV admitted to that and apologized for it. But the suggestion from Mr. Poilievre's tweets that the Bell Canada corporate suite is somehow weaponizing its news agency to get favorable treatment by the Trudeau government is a lot to say.
I don't think that they're feeling that they've been taken out of context. They were taken out of context.
Absolutely.
And
I agree.
When you are the Fifth Estate, you are in the accountability game, just the same as politicians are. And a quick apology the same day for something that is so egregious that action to be taken is not going to be enough when we're talking about the table stakes of not favorable coverage, fair and balanced coverage. And that's all Conservatives are asking for. They're asking for fair coverage. They're not asking for glowing reviews. They just want the facts to be reported as they are. So I don't think that it is, delving into conspiracy theory. We had 3 separate sentences. A Frankenstein sentence emerged as a result. That deserves to be called out, and I think that should be called out regardless of who says it in the House of Commons or which journalistic entity makes such a bad decision.
Good on her for having a backbone. I don't know who this woman is, but I'm happy that she actually said it straight to David Cochrane there. Why wouldn't David Cochrane of the CBC want to really push on that? That's their competitor. CTV is their big competitor. Why would he support them? He said he wasn't, but it seems he's very much supportive of CTV. Oh, it's just a little mistake. Somebody pushed a couple buttons on the keyboard and something happened. That's not what happened. Somebody deliberately did that. And somebody needs to be fired. This continues here, and it's really interesting because Cochrane starts to really dig into Bell, and he said he's neutral, but he clearly is not.
Just for this, we keep inviting them on. I text with MPs, people in his caucus who want to come on, but they're not allowed to come on. They say they will, and then when they have to ask permission, it never actually happens. So we have duly elected members of the House of Commons who are not allowed to come on the national public broadcaster for, reasons because the leader's office has decided I'm not a fair journalist. So here we are. But the issue, Kate, that I think is interesting here is they can do what they want with the media. That's the choice they make. When you make allegations like this about a publicly traded company on the floor of the House of Commons, should you be doing that? This is what I wonder about. There are people with their pensions, mutual funds, their livelihood invested in Bell. I know it's gone through some struggles and laid people off, but is that what we're going to do to corporate Canada?
I'd point out that a lot of that disdain is directed very much at the CEO. And the executive team, and not at the boots on the ground that are laying cable. I think there is an important distinction there. This would be a lot less complicated if telecommunications companies were kind of out of the journalism business. It would be a lot less complicated if these companies weren't receiving either preferential regulatory treatment or, in some cases, direct subsidies. Because when a private company takes advantage of those things from the government, they are now in a new level of accountability. They open themselves up to criticism and vulnerability from opposition attacks in terms of trying to make a connection between what they're doing, their business practices, and the government. And we have created this news ecosystem in Canada that is very, very reliant on government funding. So I don't fault Poilievre for making that connection between these companies taking advantage of this and a news ecosystem that has some questions to answer.
Right.
They have to find their own self-sufficiency.
Post Media gets a massive amount of the subsidy money too, and they never criticized Post Media's ethics because of the editorial leaning there. But like a mistake,
I wouldn't say that's off the table, David. And I think that
probably not.
This is actually a very good example of how there's no sacred cows.
Thank goodness Kate Harrison, I believe her name is, that she's here. She's the only one telling some honest truth here on the CBC. I'll speak for all Canadians here. We don't give a crap about Bell Media shares and stocks and all that crap. They can't be putting up fake news to push their narrative. That's it. They have to be honest. And they were caught. Call them out. Call them out when they're being fake. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what it should be. Cochrane, I'm not defending this. He goes to completely defend them. Yeah, exactly. I've said this on numerous occasions. Kate Harrison is pure gold. Kate is 100% correct. There's no defense for any news outlet manipulating anybody's message regardless of the political party saying it. When news outlets fail to provide fair and balanced coverage, they're no longer giving us the news, they're giving us propaganda. Exactly. We don't want the propaganda. That was complete garbage they put up. And speaking of complete garbage, we've got Justin Trudeau here talking about how it's important to defend traditional media and journalists. Maybe he doesn't like CTV's little trick was found out.
One of the big conversations we're having here at the UN, certainly amongst all our allies, is how important it is to stand up for democracy. We know that democratic values and principles are under attack around the world from authoritarians, from far right-wing populists, from a whole bunch of people who don't particularly want to see strong and thriving free democracies. Part of the targets of attacks on democracies is on a free, independent media.
Yeah, paying tons of our money to these companies so they say nice things about you.
Is on the work that professional journalists do to hold governments and people in power to account. And
is he shrugging his shoulders? Government's not me. I pay them.
Inform Canadians and inform citizens about what's going on in their democracies. I, as you well know, have often disagreed with some of the conclusions that media has been opining on from time to time, but
opining on? This guy.
It's absolutely essential that we always defend the freedom of and independence of the media. And politicians who deliberately undermine the legitimacy and the hard work by professional journalists are not standing up for democracy, are certainly not standing up for freedom.
So rich coming from Captain Schmuck, guy who's literally given the CBC like $1.3 billion last year, of which they dish out a bunch of that money and get bonuses, and then they laid off a bunch of people. They're his paid propagandists. Trudeau does nothing but spread lies unabated. Funny how everything he says is the exact opposite. Next up, we've got Pierre doing his thing, just sticking it to these guys.
This government has doubled the cost of housing, doubled the debt, forced 2 million people to the food bank, raised taxes, and now they want a 61 cent a litre carbon tax that will grind our economy to a halt. The good news is, in a carbon tax election, Canadians can axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Can we bring it home now?
The Honourable Minister of Health. Mr. Speaker, maybe I can speak in a language the Leader of the Opposition will understand. They're going to cut the dental. They're going to axe the pharmacare. They're going to break the health system, and they're going to destroy childcare. The difference between those slogans and the nonsense he throws around, the vacuous garbage that's best left for Nabisco, not for the House of Commons, is that's the stuff he's actually going to do. And at some point, he's going to have to look in the eyes of seniors and tell them what he's going to do to dental care. He's going to have to look in the eyes of diabetes patients and say what he's going to do with their diabetes medication. At some time, the vitriol's done and the truth comes.
I wonder if Mark Holland looks into the eyes of the people who are going through the MAID program because Canada is so unaffordable and terrible to live in that now has become something like the 5th or 6th highest cause of death in Canada. Is his program.
Colleagues were skating pretty close to the line. I'd recommend for members to ensure that they don't do that. The honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, I understand that when that member thinks of the prospect of a carbon tax election, he comes unglued and becomes very rattled and loses control of himself, waving his hands around because he's desperate to quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre. He's desperate to push a government takeover that will shut down people's private drug plans and ban them from having access to their medical plans. Common sense Conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, stop the crime, and protect your drug plan. How about that?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this is the guy who said dental care doesn't exist. This is the guy that said providers won't sign up. Well, I got news for you. 750,000 people across this country got care. I also got news for you, Mr. Speaker, and that is more than 80% of providers has signed up. We're getting it done. So he can fearmonger, he can scare people, but we're going to get it done on pharma as well. We're going to make sure that diabetes patients get their medication. We're going to make sure that women get their contraceptive, because that's what freedom looks like. A woman who has choice over her own body.
Mark Holland's about to blow another gasket here. Watch out, folks. Something also that's interesting about that 61 cents a litre, Trudeau mentioned in that other interview that the rebate increases as well. So people won't get that back. It's an affordability measure. But just think about this. If the carbon tax keeps increasing, that means people like me in British Columbia, people in Quebec, people in other provinces where that program doesn't operate, we get nothing. It means life gets more and more and more expensive. You're going to see all these different companies shut down where people are driving a lot because the cost of fuel is too much. There's no rebates, just Canadians going out of business.
What his plan does is quadruple the carbon tax to 61 cents a litre and imposes a single payer that bans women from using their existing private plans to get contraceptives or any other form of medication. That's what a single payer means. And that is not what freedom looks like, Mr. Speaker. What he actually wants to do is quadruple the carbon tax, which will grind our economy to a halt. It will be a nuclear winter for our economy. Why don't we allow Canadians to vote in a carbon tax election to decide if they're ready to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime?
So that ends off there. Karina Gould just comes in and babbles. It's not important watching, but yeah. Poilievre came locked and loaded. He was already ready for Mark Holland. Just made him look like a fool. We got this clip here of Pierre Poilievre, who not only obliterates Jagmeet, he completely fact checks him, because we know Jagmeet keeps running his mouth about a whole bunch of things Poilievre is saying. He's always attacking the pension, healthcare, all these things. And Poilievre has never said any of these things, and Poilievre, I guess, had enough of that. He goes full on right at him.
I'm going to start by correcting the falsehoods. One, I encourage him to find one example where I've not voted to increase healthcare transfers. We voted, when I was in government, we increased healthcare transfers by 70%. Because of Stephen Harper's courageous leadership and strong books, the NDP voted against those increases. Now, they propose a pharmacare scheme that would ban union workers from keeping their private pharmacare plans. Unions have fought too hard and too long for the drug plans that they have to have the NDP ban them for using what it calls a single payer system, which necessitates banning any non-government plan. When I was on the floor of Stelco, the men and women there said they want to keep the plan that they fought for, and I told them, I will never allow the NDP to ban their private drug plans and impose an inferior government plan that doesn't work.
Checkmate, man. Poilievre's on it. Well, in these few minutes, I sure learned a lot. This Liberal NDP pharma program is nothing but smoke and mirrors. I just can't believe that Singh would lie about something as important as pharmacare. Yes, this is sarcasm. If Singh isn't lying, call 911 because he ain't breathing. Call if you want him to live. Up to you. Someone, if anyone cares, to do a wellness check on Jagmeet Singh. He's going through a very difficult time. Every time he opens his mouth, he embarrasses himself further. Next up, we've got this clip here. These protesters, these are international students. They want citizenship. They think they can just march around with signs and then they'll get it. This has been going on for a while now, and it's like, guys, the time's up.
Fix your system! Fix your system! Fix your system! Don't blame us! Fix your system! Don't blame us! Don't blame us! Fix your system!
Don't blame us, fix your system. That's not how it works. It's more like get on the jet, and I'll see you guys later.
We want to stay here! We want to stay here! We want to stay here!
These people didn't come here the right way. It's time to go home. You can apply the right way. Until then, you can't just march around our streets and expect to get citizenship. This is ridiculous. Every worker matters. They're emboldened by our weak government. Next up, we got a clip here of Stephen Guilbeault, who brings up some stats about how this has been the worst year for forest fires. I was like, what is he talking about? This year was one of the better ones. As a hiker, often in August, you'll end up with a couple weeks where it's really smoggy, which sucks. We didn't have that at all. Aside from, like a week or so there when Jasper burned down. But even then, we didn't really get the forest fire smoke over here on Vancouver Island. There really wasn't that many forest fires in comparison to, say, last year or the year before. So he brings up these stats. Let's just check it out.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to read an extract from a report that came out today from the Insurance Bureau of Canada, and I quote, "Summer of 2024 ranks as the most destructive season in Canadian history for insured losses due to severe weather. In only 2 months, July and August, this summer eclipsed the worst year on record and has pushed 2024 year-to-date tally over $7.7 billion in severe natural catastrophes." Mr. Speaker, what's the answer from the Leader of the Opposition? Let the planet burn. We won't take this on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker.
He's cherry-picking data, so I've got it right here. If we look, this is what he's talking about. Notice when he said it wasn't the worst forest fires, it's the worst insured damages. That's because Jasper burned down. A whole town burned down. So it says right here, severe summer weather costs $7 billion in insured losses, Canada's most destructive season on record. So that is true, if you're looking at Jasper, so $7 billion versus $6.2 billion, the cost of Fort McMurray in 2016. And the reason why Jasper burned down, is because the mountain pine beetle outbreak. There's all the dead trees all the way around Jasper. I filmed it. I have footage of it the year before it burned down. Last year I went there, I hiked up mountains out there. There's a huge band of pine beetle dead trees all around Jasper. And they were warned about this. Guilbeault was warned about this and he did nothing. This is a clip from the House of Commons in 2017 of the Liberals being warned about the pine beetle around Jasper.
Mr. Speaker, Jasper National Park, one of Canada's major tourist destinations, has been devastated by the pine beetle infestation. Much of the forest is dead or dying. The dead trees are a tremendous fuel load and present a significant risk to the community of Jasper. Residents are concerned for their own safety and that of the visitors and the security of their homes. With a high risk of wildfires fueled by a forest devastated by the pine beetle, have the Liberals put a plan in place to protect this park?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Our government is absolutely committed to the ecological integrity of our national parks. That is my first priority as a minister. We are working very hard in all of our parks, including Jasper National Park. I look forward to talking to the member further about this and seeing how we can move forward. Thank you.
Look, you got Fergus back here. So they were warned. So Guilbeault brings this up in the House of Commons, yet the Liberals were warned. Yet Jasper burns down, and now he's pointing this as climate change, and that's the reason you got to jack the carbon tax. This is a load of crap.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the carbon tax was supposed to fix all of that. They won't call a carbon tax election because they know exactly what Canadians will say. 2023 was the 8th consecutive year that food bank usage rose. By some great coincidence, it was also the 8th consecutive year of this Liberal government. So how many more people need to visit or need to be forced to a food bank before the Environment Minister admits that taxes are up, that costs are up, that crime is up, and that his time is up?
The reality, Mr. Speaker, is that the Conservative Party and its leader are not there to protect Canadians. They're there to protect the interest of their friends, like oil executives who attended a special event for the leader of the opposition. I can assure you, Mr. Speaker, that oil executives don't come to my fundraiser. I can guarantee you that. But what they want to do is take away, in his writing, Carleton, 58,000 people are receiving the Canada carbon rebate. In Thornhill, more than 60,000 people are receiving more money than what they pay in carbon pricing. We're helping with affordability, Mr. Speaker, and we're helping to fight climate change.
It's all a bunch of lies. Lies, lies, lies. How can it be affordability measure when there's 5 million people that live in BC who don't get a rebate? There's 8.4 million people who live in Quebec who also don't get a rebate. Next up, we got smug-faced Justin Trudeau telling Doug Ford how the asylum program works. This is just like an embarrassing interview. The whole thing is just, it's out of control.
This was the first opportunity I had to sit down with Premier Ford to talk about the asylum seeker issue and irregular migration. This is obviously something fairly important. It didn't seem to me that the Premier was quite as aware of our international obligations to the UN Convention on Refugees as he might have been. So I spent a little time explaining how the asylum-seeking system works and how our system is supposed to operate.
That's a load of crap, Trudeau. We don't have any obligations except to Canadians. That's it. That's who your obligations should be to, not all these other people you're bringing in to try to stay in power.
But at the same time, I agreed that it would be good for our officials to sit down and get clarity on how we can actually work together to ensure that we are holding true to our values, but making sure that our immigration and refugee system is being applied in its integrity. I reassured the Premier, I attempted to reassure the Premier that the asylum seeker stream is separate from the immigration stream, that Canada has always had a separate procedure to assess refugees and to determine whether or not they are indeed fleeing violence, persecution, and terror, or else they are simply economic migrants, at which point they would get sent home once their files are processed. It's important as leaders in Canada to continue to protect one of the great advantages that Canada has over so many other countries, particularly at this time, is that Canadians are generally very positively inclined towards immigration. People,
I bring in all the worst people from around the world and put my own citizens on the streets. This guy is just such a disgrace.
know that people coming here to build better lives for themselves actually contributes tremendously to our country and to our success. And this is something that that we are going to continue to ensure that our immigration and refugee system is applied responsibly.
Success, yeah. Nobody's having success right now. Everybody's hurting. It's this guy has just ruined our country single-handedly. He's so good at proving he's a wise, inclusive, caring leader. He has tremendous impulse control and extremely smart. What is this garbage? There's so many of these fake, stupid comments on X now. They must be paying for tons of bots. I see all these stupid comments now. He's not wise. He's the most arrogant, smug, worst leader we've ever had in Canada. Nothing like someone with a double-digit IQ thinking they can educate someone else. Quite the stuff going on here. Pierre Poilievre just fighting back hard. You know, CTV trying to, plaster him on there. I mean, we've seen these reports. We've seen the Liberals, CBC, all of them say, oh, how much is Poilievre's pension? How much? Canadians don't care because he earned his pension. Jagmeet has not earned his pension. He's trying to steal it, to snake it, to take it. That's the issue there with the pension. Now you got CTV trying to, just twist his words and make him look bad. You got Trudeau trying to fling mud at him when he's on Colbert. It's not an easy position for Poilievre to be in. I've said this before. He's a strong man. He's able to take it. He's a real leader. He's able to take all this garbage and fight back against it. He will win. He will win the next election unless Justin Trudeau does something he's not allowed to do.